I guarantee y'all don't know everything on this list. What's up, y'all? It's Rachel in the Borough, your favorite real estate guide living in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And if you are either moving to Tennessee or you're thinking of moving to Tennessee, then you're gonna need to know all the tips in this video. Now, I've really put some thought into this to try to find some lesser known things, maybe not mentioned as often in videos, so make sure to let me know in the comments how many on this list you already knew. Is Tennessee full? I'm gonna say it loud and clear for that grumpy grump in the back. Tennessee ain't full, not even close. And this may not count as news, but America is a free country. What this means is that people moving from another state, they're free to do so. Whether that's from Alabama, Florida, New York, California, or wherever. And by the way, y'all ain't got no business telling people where to move. So that's my first tip, is that even the southern states, they're not without people that simply needs to mind their own business. And I will say that you don't need to worry about people saying that to your face, because it comes as no surprise that there's no way to tell by looking at you that you lived in another state and moved to Tennessee. And if anybody says anything, they're most likely just curious why you moved here. So tell them why you left Tennessee, and then they'll know you're just like us. Is Southern hospitality dead in this day and age of social media and political strife? Southern hospitality is about helping one's neighbor, being open to meeting new friends and neighbors, and even something as simple as a smile and a wave. Most people here are open to saying hello, and it's up to each person that moves here to keep that up and carry it forward to the next generation. For me, Southern hospitality is something that transcends religion or even political party. So my next tip is that when you move to Tennessee, to embody loving your neighbors. And it's true, Tennessee is a more conservative state politically, and I don't see that changing even with our growing population. Tennessee is typically very slow to accepting changes, but I do always encourage new residents to make sure and register to vote. You can do so easily whenever you get your new driver's license, or you can go apply at the local library or election office. One thing about Tennessee is that we typically have very low voter turnout, so I always encourage Tennesseans of voting age to be engaged citizens. That way we can keep Tennessee on the path that we want. And by the way, make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you love Tennessee. As a parent considering what type of school or education you want for your child, in Tennessee, you do have choices. We have public schools, charter schools, private schools, magnet schools, as well as inter-district and inter-district school choice. And look, I've seen the statistics that Tennessee ranks lower for education. I grew up here, I was educated in this system, and I can say wholeheartedly that lack of education never stopped me from pursuing my dreams. I think it's up to us parents to stay involved like my mom and dad were in helping our children achieve success. And there is going to be some truth to the larger school districts having more varied academic and athletic programs for students. Sometimes there will be buses that go from a rural high school to a neighboring high school that does offer specific electives that a student normally wouldn't get at that rural high school. So that's my next tip for you, is to be an involved parent. That way we can all raise together good, responsible Tennessee citizens. And what about education after high school? We have the Tennessee Promise. So graduating high school seniors get 2 years of free community college. In my area, near Murfreesboro, Montlow State is the big community college, and you can even take those credits from those community colleges and apply them towards a bachelor's degree. And if you transfer to a four-year university like MTSU or UT, for example. Someone correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think you need to live in Tennessee at least 1 year to qualify for that as well. In the state of Tennessee, the weather can change very rapidly here. Make sure to check your weather daily and get out around town and speak to people. I guarantee somebody is going to warn you if there's a winter storm coming. They'll ask, have you heard about the thunderstorm? Or whatever's coming. And if you're out and about and you see a real nasty dark cloud, seeking shelter in a safe location is recommended. The sonic ice ain't worth it, y'all. I'm speaking a little bit on personal experience with that one. Leading up to my next tip, which is to talk about where folks in Tennessee take shelter, since we don't have a lot of homes here with basements. So you may have heard that Tennessee ground is very rich in limestone. So that makes it very expensive to dig here. And that's also good to know if you plan on installing an in-ground pool. Some folks here will install a storm shelter. I've seen commonly folks digging into their garage to build a storm shelter. Like I said, it's expensive to dig. It's probably going to run you a few $1,000s, and in a typical season, you will use that fewer than 5 days per year, and more than likely 1 or 2. Personally, I ain't got that kind of money to spend on something that I'm only going to use a couple of nights a year. So I'm just saying this because I get a lot of questions on where do people go with the tornadoes. My recommendation for living in Tennessee is just to check the weather, be very weather aware, and don't worry too much about the what if. When is the best month to move to Tennessee? Well, one could make the argument that October is generally very mild and the least rainy month statistically, but I think most people move at the time that aligns with their schedule and their life. So maybe during the summer break for those that don't want to interrupt a school year, or it could be flexible based on when you find the property that you want. I like my weather mild, so if you're like me, maybe don't move in the coldest or the hottest months of the year. December, January, July, and August here in Tennessee. But if you get movers to help you move, so you don't have to be the one carrying all the boxes from the truck, just saying. The next tip I have for you is to double and triple check those moving expenses that were quoted to you. When working with people that relocate from state to state, I've found that sadly it's very common for these moving companies to underquote the moving expenses, and they sign up with a company only to be told that it's going to be costing 15 to 25% more than they initially were told. I don't know if there's a perfect moving company, but it wouldn't hurt to just give yourself a little cushion financially with your budget so that something like that doesn't prevent the entire move from happening in the first place. While we're on the subject of moving, one thing that you might want to bring with you when you move to Tennessee is your refrigerator. I get it, it's a heavy appliance to move, but the way the Tennessee Purchase and Sale Agreement is written is for the range, the dishwasher, and any built-in appliances, such as a built-in microwave, those will stay with the sale of the home. Sometimes the seller will leave the fridge, but it is something I need to write into the purchase and sale agreement. Same with the washer dryer. That's not a standard appliance that comes with a home. Okay, but let's say the home you're getting is new construction. In that case, consult with your buyer's agent, someone like me, and they're going to let you know if the builder will buy you a fridge or not, because every situation is different. New construction homes are everywhere in Tennessee, and the vast majority of builders, they work well with buyers that bring their own agent. And by that, I mean, yes, they will pay my compensation, but they also won't hinder me from protecting your best interests. If you're moving here and purchasing from a new home builder, I recommend before calling any new home communities that you first call and hire a buyer's agent. And I'm gonna go ahead and link a video below telling you how a buyer's agent is absolutely essential when you're buying new construction in Tennessee. Let's talk a little bit more about buyer's representation when you're buying a home in Tennessee, because you need to know that as of 2024, it's legally required to sign an agreement before touring a home. That can be a buyer's representation agreement, a one-day touring agreement. There's different names for it. In Tennessee, we have 2 different types of buyer representation agreements, exclusive and non-exclusive. Now keep in mind, real estate agents like me, we're small businesses, so not all of us are going to be willing to work with a buyer that would prefer to sign that non-exclusive agreement. Personally, I just always like to have a conversation to make sure that, 1, we like each other, and that 2, you're on board with the process before even discussing whether we'd partner together on your next home purchase. And truly, if you sit down and talk with an agent, listen to their process, how they'll help you, you should know whether you'd want to work with that person or not after that initial consultation. Trust me, my skill set is not actually the opening the door part. Some of y'all got sticky locks, and I look like a straight up clown trying to get the key to turn. If you drive a hybrid or electric vehicle in Tennessee, you will pay more for your car registration than gas-only vehicles. That's because in Tennessee, we do not have toll roads, so our state relies on the gas tax to help maintain our infrastructure. Car registration fees, they'll vary by county. In Rutherford County, where I live, it's around $86 a year, and I drive a Toyota hybrid, meaning I pay an additional $100 annually. Speaking of driving in Tennessee, be aware of the laws specific to Tennessee, like no handheld phone use and the move over law. While moving over for emergency vehicles has been around for a while, now we should always try to move over for any stopped vehicle on the side of the road. One caveat, use a little common sense with this. If moving over is not possible, just slow down. Let's talk about Tennessee roads because they can be a pothole-filled nightmare sometimes. It doesn't snow heavy here much, but all it takes is one big snow and they bring out the snow plows on the interstate, and then for years to come, until they completely repave the roads, there will be so many potholes. I remember, I think it was in 2021, there were potholes literally 1 foot deep. People were getting stuck in these potholes, blow out their tires right there on the interstate. That being said, I will say I've noticed the last 1 or 2 years or so, they've made a bigger effort with our infrastructure. Highways have been getting paved more, and TDOT, the Tennessee Department of Transportation, they're working diligently to improve the speed and flow of traffic from Murfreesboro to Nashville. Otherwise, it's one of the worst commutes in the US. I personally don't make that commute daily, and I wouldn't want to. I only have to do it on occasion. Luckily, there's everything I need right here in the borough, and I only have to drive to Nashville when I want to or if I want to visit a specific store. Next, a few tips having to do with home inspections in Tennessee. Let's talk about wood-destroying insects because Tennessee does have termites. You'll definitely want to get an inspection done, and once you're moved in, most people have termite bait stations in the yard to control that. Whatever property that you're looking at, I can just about guarantee one of 3 things. At some point, it's had termites. Right now, it's got termites. Or at some point in the future, it's gonna have termites. So definitely make sure that you're taking care of that. The fastest way to lose your home equity is to not maintain your home and let those small issues turn into a really big issue down the road. Next up, let's talk about radon, because in Tennessee, we can have some hot spots for radon. And what I mean by hot spot is that it's accumulating in such a large amount as that it's becomes a health hazard because it does cause cancer in large amount. I have had some properties that I've helped people buy that did test high for radon, and I will say that every seller was willing to pay for radon mitigation, which is about $2,000 to install. And do not make me, as a buyer's agent, threaten, because your seller would then have to disclose, hey, this home has a health hazard. In Tennessee, do you need a survey when you buy a piece of property? That really depends on the property. A survey is usually done on land whenever the owner wants to subdivide, but if you just need someone to locate the boundary lines, that's not necessarily something that would require an entirely new survey. You can pay a surveyor to just come out and locate the pins and get those questions answered. And also, I want you to know that a title company can pull the deed and the most recent survey on record. Speaking of title, no, you won't need an attorney to transfer property in Tennessee because Tennessee is a title state. I have closed at an attorney's office in my real estate career, and it's something that I really try not to do. And that's because attorneys, they have their own caseload. And in my opinion, I don't think that they're taking title work as a priority. Also, I love my title companies that I work with. They really get things done, and they also shield me and my clients from any stress of the transaction. And just so you know, the title companies will have an attorney on staff. So if you do need to specifically speak with an attorney, you can definitely do so. What region of Tennessee would best suit you? So while the middle region is definitely the economic powerhouse of the state, East Tennessee and West Tennessee are hubs for manufacturing, logistics, and more. The Appalachian Mountains go through East Tennessee and do provide the background most people associate with Tennessee. The more rural areas will have the lower cost of living, but generally more limited housing and jobs. The more populated areas tend to have a lot of new construction developments happening, and that makes up for a lot of the lack of existing inventory. I love Middle Tennessee because the population is just more cosmopolitan. The jobs here are plentiful and they pay better than the other regions, though Middle Tennessee housing is overall higher than the other two regions, though it is similar to Knoxville. Looking at the jobs, economy, and cost of living, Knoxville is actually more similar to Middle Tennessee and Murfreesboro. If you've read anywhere that Knoxville is a way cheaper to live than Nashville, well, that was prior to 2020. They are now pretty similar. So that's another factor that you can take into consideration whenever you're making that decision. Another tip for choosing where to live is to just visit the area and stay for a weekend. Once you've identified an area online through research like these videos, come on out and visit the volunteer state. Whatever areas are on your short list, go to the local parks, events, and restaurants, and see how it feels to interact with the area. And of course, housing is important, but be realistic. Driving through some neighborhoods will be helpful, but taking time to look at housing before you've decided if you'll even move, that is not the most practical use of an opportunity to visit Tennessee. While visiting is helpful to determine if you'll want to live here and where in Tennessee you want to live, know that it's completely possible to buy a home without being here physically. I often work with clients that need video tours and rely on me being here when they physically aren't able to be. So what are some good cities and towns to move to in Tennessee? If that's something that you want to learn more about, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel, since I do feature different cities and towns with my area, and sometimes I'll collaborate with agents in another region about trending places to move to. The short answer is there's so many great places to move that it's hard to make a blanket suggestion like that. If someone calls me for a consultation though, I'll usually glean enough information about that person and what interests them to maybe offer a few places that I think they would really like. Because there's really not that much difference between the different regions in Tennessee, it's good to know most of the cultural differences are apparent when you look at rural towns versus the large cities. Small towns tend to be the slower pace of living. You'll see more farming done in those areas and less post-high school education. Cities, of course, are more populated, and the population tends to carry more of those higher education degrees. As far as the cost of housing, I think that with remote work, the cost of housing between the rural and the urban areas in Tennessee has more or less evened out. Whereas 10 years ago, the rural areas were significantly less cost-wise than living in the city, now I think the rural areas have slightly lower cost of housing, but typically lower paying jobs, or you have to drive very far to a large city for a decent paying job. The large cities are convenient to the well-paying job, but can have a higher cost of living, and typically there are things like theft to look out for when you're living in those more populated areas. If you consider yourself someone that's open-minded, then this next tip is for you, because maybe you really don't think that Tennessee is right for you. I'm going to encourage you to look at Murfreesboro, Tennessee. It's one of our fastest growing communities because it offers most of what people want. You know, when I first moved to Murfreesboro, I thought it was boring, but I've also come to realize that boring is safe, boring is normal. And that's actually what really attracts people to this area. It has everything we need, top schools in the state, and a thriving economy. Once I moved here, I gave Murfreesboro a chance just by going out into the community, learning about the history, the people, the things to do in the area. It really helped me to grow a newfound appreciation for where I live. Murfreesboro, Tennessee absolutely embodies what most people want out of life. It's just simply a great place to live. Maybe that's got you intrigued on living in Murfreesboro, so here's a video to learn more about why Murfreesboro is consistently ranked one of the fastest growing places in America. And you're also going to want to check out the cost of living in Tennessee. I'm going to link that down below, and I'll see you at the next video.